Welcome to the Live Undeniably podcast, where we explore the connections that fuel our careers, our communities, and our lives. I'm your host, Toye Oremosu. What you're about to hear was originally one long conversation with Dr. Kemi Fagbami, an internist who successfully navigated the U.S. medical system as an immigrant professional. The insights were so rich that the only way for you to get the maximum benefit was to present them in two parts. So the first part is called Support Systems That Save Careers. And that's this part. It's about the unseen scaffolding that holds us up when the journey feels impossible. Mentors, family, colleagues, and even unexpected kindness from strangers. Dr. Kemi's story shows us that success is never solitary. Behind every career breakthrough is a support system that saves us at just the right moment.
So my dad's best friend is married to my mom's cousin. They're both doctors. I just loved their lifestyle. I just felt they were really cool people. And I'm gonna be a doctor too one day. And I remember thinking that as a young kid. And my mom actually told me years later that, Kemi, you said it. You said, I'm going to be a doctor in America. I do not remember that part. But apparently I said it, and here we are. So to be a medical doctor, of course, you had to have certain grades in Nigeria. Luckily, my dad is a very proactive person. So when I was in Form 5, he said in high school, he goes, why don't you take the WAEC? Just take a test run and see how it goes. And of course, I did well in the subjects that I loved, which were mainly like biology, English, Yoruba. And so I did those, and I failed woefully in math, physics. And so my dad was like, yeah, so you see now, you got to focus on these areas. So I did, and I was eventually able to get very fantastic grades to leave in high school. I did JAM, and I got into med school. I wouldn't say it was easy, but it wasn't the hardest thing I've ever done.
Just a quick note, WAEC is equivalent of a high school diploma, and JAM is Nigeria's college admissions exam.
Luckily, when I finished med school, I went and did my internship. I went on to do my youth service in Lagos, National Youth Service Corps, which is a mandatory 1-year service when you finish college in Nigeria. Then I was retained as a medical officer, and I worked there for a couple of years, but it was very far from where I lived at the time, so I had to move to a private hospital.
Dreams are fragile when you're young. What carries them forward is often someone who refuses to let you give up too soon. For Dr. Kemi, it was her father who pushed her to face weaknesses head on. Think back to your own beginnings. Who pushed you when you were ready to give up? Who saw potential in you that you didn't yet see in yourself?
And there's a funny story. So while I worked at that private hospital, a patient of mine looks at me up and down and says, why don't you go and be a nurse in America? I was so irritated. I was like, oh, well, sure, guys, I'll just go be a doctor in America. I took my plan wasn't actually to come to the United States. My plan was to go to the UK because a lot of Nigerian doctors do go to the UK. But the year I did that exam, they said, oh, we have enough Nigerian doctors. We're good. That was that. And so I had to now, pivot and go on to say, okay, if the UK is not going to work out, let's try the United States. Luckily, my brother-in-law was a physician here, And I had so many friends who were also doctors here. And they were like, yeah, Kemi, why don't you come to the United States? Why don't you do a medical licensing examination? And they warned me, you're going to have to study for this exam until you are sure you will get the highest possible score. Because by now, I wasn't a fresh grad. And you're also going to have to see what you can do to bolster your CV. Because now you're a medical officer. That's just not so impressive. So I decided I was going to do a residency in Nigeria. And I applied. Unfortunately, it's not really a streamlined process. It's more about who you know, and more than about these are the spots we have, and this is how you get in. It was just a very, very nebulous program of getting in. So I moved to Ibadan, because I was living formerly in Lagos, one of the financial hub in Nigeria, and I moved to Ibadan, which is where I trained, which is where I was born and where I grew up. And I waited so many years to get into this residence. Of course, in the meantime, I was studying for the USMLE. I took the steps. I was able to take a couple of them while I was in Nigeria. I had to travel to Ghana to get those done. And eventually, I got this residency spot. And I was at the end of my second year, going into my third year, when I left and came to the United States to start my residency in internal medicine all over again.
Sometimes doors slam shut. For Dr. Kemi, the UK door closed, but her brother-in-law and friends in the US helped her pivot. When one of your dreams collapsed, who helped you believe another door could open? Before we continue, let me pause here to connect what you're hearing with a resource that can carry you forward. If Dr. Kemi's story is reminding you of the power of relationships and mentorship, you want to get my book, Become Undeniable, From Overlooked to Unforgettable. It's about building the influence, presence, and trust that turns connections into opportunities, the very lifelines we're exploring in this story. You can get a copy at becometheundeniable.one. That's not .com, it's .one, .one, because sometimes all it takes is one mentor, one decision, or one step to change everything. Visit becometheundeniable.one today, and let's keep building your future. Now, back to Dr. Kemi's journey.
I was an internal medicine resident in UCH, University College Hospital, and I got a spot into an internal medicine program in the United States. Now, getting that spot wasn't all clear, because remember now, I'm no longer a fresh graduate. This is about 6 years out of med school. And that's really not particularly like fresh material, like the young, fresh blood the typical programs are looking for. But I was very fortunate, and this is where this mentoring thing comes in. I was very fortunate in that I had friends. Now, this is when you talk about the lateral thing, about not overlooking people who are your peers. And so these are people I went to med school with, who were here before me in the United States. And they told me, they kind of guided me through the entire process, including saying, Kemi, don't take the test until you're ready to take it. Don't take it until you're 100% sure that you're going to have good grades, because already you're an international medical graduate. You are kind of like an elderly person now, because you're now how many years out of med school? And so you got to blow it out of the water. That's number one. And then when I was doing my interviews, I had a lot of coaching from my friends. And they were like, there's this thing in Nigeria that's very valued. It's being very performatively humble when you go in for your interviews. That's not what they want here. They want you to go in with confidence. It's going to be hard because, in Nigeria, like we say, you're constantly dosed with humility. If they think you're getting big in the head, you get an extra dose of humbling. That's kind of how it is. And so that took a lot of rehearsals on my part to go in and say, and I don't think I aced it, that part of it. I think I was just very fortunate because I got a lot of feedback. Now, if that was today and I'm doing those interviews, it would have been a totally different experience on both sides.
Peer mentorship is often overlooked, but it's one of the most powerful forms of guidance. Dr. Kemi's classmates became her compass, showing her how to navigate a culture that valued confidence over performance humility. Who are the peers in your life that you've underestimated? How might their guidance be the missing link you need right now?
But I was just very fortunate. And this is now where the mentorship of someone in a position of authority comes in, And also, there's also something about when you meet someone who sees something in you and they just believe in you, not because you've proven anything to them, but just because they're willing to give you a chance and pound the table for you. So when I was interviewing for my residency, of course, I could see there was a lot of skepticism. Like, this is someone who's 6 years out of med school. Agreed, she's got great scores, which is how you get your foot in the door to get an interview. And also, I'm Nigerian. I'm a mother of 2. I didn't look like a fantastic person to come in and work the hours of an internal medicine residency. Where I eventually went for my residency, I decided to go there. It was a small program at the time. Now it's grown. It's got almost every single fellowship you can imagine. A lot more residencies. It was a small program in Pennsylvania. But I remember because I had a long bus ride and I arrived in the middle of the night. No restaurants, nothing. There was nothing to eat and drink. So the next morning I got up, went for my interview. I sat across from this wonderful man called Dr. Donato, and my belly let out this huge roaring growl. I was mortified. I began to apologize. If I had any less melanin, I'd have been beetroot red. And he heard it. And while I was apologizing, he goes, "Why don't you come with me?" He didn't make me feel put up, he didn't make me feel weird, like this huge growl coming from this African lady who's sitting across from me. He just gets up, takes me to breakfast. It was part of my interview. He kind of wove it into my interview. And I looked at him like, this is a good person. I don't think I didn't think I had come across anyone to be that kind. It didn't seem like he didn't even have to. He could have
Mm.
said, this girl obviously has some kind of weird uh, animal residing in her bowels and just been very put off by that sound. But no, he
Uh,
went and took me to breakfast, bought me breakfast because I mean I could have bought myself breakfast, but he did that for me. And that was just such kindness that I was like, and I didn't think, I mean, he obviously that wasn't part of the interview, but the fact that he did that for me, it kind of decided for me that I was gonna go to that program. Never mind.
mm,
And they also they just were very kind and welcoming, which is, you know how what they say about people will never forget how you made them feel. They will forget what you say to them. I don't even remember how the interview went, but what has stuck with me until today was the kindness of Dr. Donato. And I met so many kind people like that in that program. And that was just the culture. And I have to say that I thrived and I had a wonderful time there. Now, was it a cakewalk being a Nigerian navigating this residency with two kids? No, but they just had a baseline of, okay, we realize you're human. We want you here. And that's another thing. Obviously, they wanted me there, not because they didn't have fantastic candidates. I don't know what they saw. Until today, it's something that I'm just grateful for. I've stopped being baffled by it because they've managed to convince me that, yeah, actually, you were a great candidate. I mean, they had people from Harvard. I had co-interns from Harvard, from fantastic American universities, but I was this Nigerian from the University College Hospital. And so that's and those relationships I cherish till today.
sometimes support comes in the smallest gestures. That breakfast wasn't just food, it was dignity. It was a reminder that she belonged. What small act of kindness still shapes you years later? And whose future might you influence through one act of kindness today?
My husband gave up a lot for us to be here. You know, at the time I started my residency, he was finishing up his MBA in the UK. He had a great job in Nigeria, a fantastic telecoms job. If
Mm.
he had gone back to that job, he'd have been, even it'd have really blown up. But he was gonna support me in my dream of being this doctor in America, right? And so he came so when I came first, I came alone. I got the apartment, and then he came and another thing is, I couldn't have done this without my mother-in-law. That she is a mother. She is a mother. Like I told you, I moved to Ibadan to do this internal medicine residency, which was gonna bolster my CV so I could come to America. And I lived with her, with my two kids. Well, I moved with one. I had another one while I lived with her. And I couldn't have done it without even getting that residency. She really went to town. She would tell people like she knew because she was in the academic community, like, what are you guys doing? What are you sleeping on that you haven't given this very, very intelligent woman a residence? People, she really went to bat for me. And then, like I said, my husband was in the UK during most of that time. So we had this fantastic relationship. She took care of my kids. I didn't have to worry about coming home at 1 a.m. because the kids were all well taken care of. So that's that. And then, of course, when I came to the United States, she came with my husband. My husband was a stay-at-home dad for quite a while. By both, maybe not all of it was by choice because it was really hard for him to get that footing that he had in Nigeria that he left behind. And I can't say I guarantee you that I couldn't have done this without him. So yeah, kudos to him. Now, eventually, when he moved and when he got a job in Texas, I had a nanny, and I will give her a shout out. Her name is Zulema. She's from Argentina. She treated my kids like they were her grandkids. Now, till today, my kids talk to her. Like my older kid, who remembers her really well, talks to her on the phone, chats with her from time to time. So she was like, I could go to work and be at peace. Did that come free of charge? No, I had to pay her a living wage, which took a huge chunk of my paycheck.
Behind every professional's achievements are sacrifices the world never sees. Her husband gave up his career. Her mother-in-law fought for her. Her nanny became like family. Who are the invisible heroes in your story? The ones who make your successes possible, but rarely get any recognition. Dr. Kemi's journey reminds us that careers don't rise on ambition alone. They rise on support systems that save us, mentors, peers, family, and even strangers who meet us with kindness. So let me ask you, who are the support systems saving your career right now? And whose career might you be saving without even knowing it? Who are the invisible heroes in your story, the ones who make your successes possible but rarely get any recognition? This was part 1 of my conversation with Dr. Kemi Fagbami. But her story doesn't end here. In our next episode, you'll listen to part 2, Mentorship That Builds Futures. You will hear how mentorship transformed her challenges into leadership, how burnout pushed her to pivot, and how she built freedom on her own terms. And if you're ready to start shaping your own future right now, grab a copy of my book, Become Undeniable, at becometheundeniable.1. Remember, .one, not .com, because one connection can change everything. Thank you for listening. Let's become undeniable together.